very well when you're going to come out because that would be great. Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the National Constitution Center. I'm Jeffrey Rosen, the president of this wonderful institution. Many of you have been here before and some have not, and those who have been here know that we always begin our programs by reciting the inspiring mandate that Congress gave the Constitution Center when it created us during the bicentennial of the Constitution. And here it is, and we're going to do the full motto so that Khizr Khan can hear it and be as inspired as all of us are. The National Constitution Center is the only institution in America chartered by Congress to disseminate information about the U.S. Constitution on a nonpartisan basis in order to increase awareness and understanding of the Constitution among the American people. And that's exactly what Khizr Khan is doing by waving the pocket Constitution. And I have to tell you, of course, I gave him a copy of the Constitution Center's pocket Constitution just a few moments ago. He is inspiring Americans to read and learn from the Constitution. And I also shared with Khizr Khan the incredible online interactive Constitution that the National Constitution Center has launched. How many of you have downloaded the interactive Constitution? Well, the rest of you must, because this incredible online tool has gotten 12 million hits since it launched in 2015, and it brings the leading liberal and conservative scholars in America to write about every clause of the Constitution, describing what they agree about and what they disagree about. What an amazing online tool, and each day you can pick a clause and learn from it and explore areas of agreement and disagreement, and I hope with Khizr Khan's help, we're going to bring this to every student in America. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an exciting week at the Constitution Center. Last week began with John McCain receiving the Liberty Medal. It included that wonderful discussion with Bob Schieffer, and we just have a blockbuster series of programs coming up in November, including Cass Sunstein on the impeachment clause on a nonpartisan basis. Hank Meyer, author of a new biography of Arthur Vandenberg, who was a very nonpartisan senator of the mid-20th century. Frank Foer from The Atlantic on his new book, World Without Mind, The Existential Threat of Big Tech. And then we culminate in a blockbuster Bill of Rights Day, which will include leading authors, including Noah Feldman on James Madison. It's now my great pleasure to introduce our speaker and moderator. Our moderator is the Constitution Center Scholar in Residence, Michael Gerhardt. Michael, who teaches at the University of North Carolina, is indispensable to the Constitution Center's education efforts, one of America's great interviewers, and I know you'll so enjoy the conversation. And Khizr Khan, the eldest of 10 children, was born in rural Pakistan. He moved to the United States in 1980. He became an American citizen. His middle son, U.S. Captain Humayun Khan, was killed in 2004 when stopping a suicide attack and posthumously awarded a Purple Heart and Bronze Star. Senator John McCain once said of Mr. and Mrs. Khan, "We're in a better country because of you." And you were certainly right. Your son was the best of America, and the memory of his sacrifice will make us a better nation. Mr. Khan joins us tonight to discuss his new book, An American Family, a memoir of hope and sacrifice. Please join me in welcoming Khizr Khan.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please have a seat. I am always honored to be here. It's an extraordinary privilege for somebody who teaches constitutional law to be a part of the extraordinary world of the National Constitution Center. It is a special privilege here to be with someone I think we all can agree is an American patriot, an American hero. And we appreciate your candor, appreciate your teaching us and appreciate the extraordinary life you lived. And perhaps maybe a good place to begin is to go back to the beginning. The book, of course, as Jeff just said, is about an American family, but that, of course, is not how it all began. You grew up in Pakistan. So tell us about your childhood.
Thank you. I am so honored to be sitting and speaking under this wonderful, wonderful place and in the company of great Americans here. When I was invited to come here, I literally felt in my heart that there is something much bigger taking place, that I will have the privilege of walking into this place, and the sentiment I had as if I am coming to perform pilgrimage, the sacredness of what is about to take place here, the conversation and the place. This is our second time. First time we came here last year under different circumstances, but I am honored. My story is a very humble, modest story with very little means. We grew up under two martial laws. Why democracy? Why the dignities enshrined in our documents, rights and privileges that all of us take for granted, mean so very much to me, because I have lived most of my childhood, part of my adult life, without any. Meaning that I have seen with my own eyes press, the media, the newspaper burned because newspaper wrote derogatorily or criticizing the military leader, the dictator. Judges were no good, throw them out because they wrote a decision that was not in favor of the journal, in favor of the military ruler. Members of the National Assembly should be thrown out. They're representative of the people, but they make noise. They create problem for the dictator to govern. And you can draw you can connect the dots, but so I grew up in that environment. I struggled to go through school, then college, and then law school. I remember, and we mentioned that, and I say this to show my gratitude. I did not have the fee to pay for the exam, final exam of the law school. It was LLB class. Mm-hmm. I had submitted the application, probably the only application that went without the proper fee to the registrar. And in my heart was that I will handle it. Somehow something will happen and I will be able to pay it before the exam. Went to parents asking, see if they have saved some money somewhere. And they told me that they really don't have. Maybe you should told me to take the exam next year. By then we should have some money saved to pay. And these were only $23 of then 230 rupees. So I went tomorrow is the exam. In the evening, I couldn't come up with 230 rupees. So I went to the Sheikh Imtiaz was his name, and he was the principal of the law college where I attended the law college, knocked at his door, and luckily he was there. He came out and I had taken evidence class, he taught evidence. And he recognized me to some extent, and he said, how can I help? I told him that I am unable to take the exam, I need your help. He said, I will arrange it for you. And he thought that I was asking for money. I said, no, I don't need, I'll pay, I just need to take the exam. He said, okay, so he goes back in there, and I write that in detail in this book. And he writes a note puts it in his envelope, seals it, gives it to me, that go early to the exam hall, give this to the proctor, and are you ready? I said, yes, I am so ready to take the exams. So I show up there 7 o'clock in the morning, exam starts at 9, the proctors are coming in, and I give the letter to the chief proctor, and I'm dying to read what is on this little letter note that is handwritten, and he has sealed it. So the proctor is holding the letter like this, and he's calling the assistants and telling them to set aside a table and let him take the exam. And I was able to read what my principal had written on that letter. He said, please let this student take the exam. I guarantee that the fees will be paid. And that's all. It meant so very much to me, from generosity, kindness of a teacher that made it all possible. He could have simply said, I'm sorry, I cannot help, or here is 200 rupees, go pay your fee and all that. No, he guaranteed my future.
Well, that's extraordinary, and it's a wonderful moment. I did not ask any of my professors to give me a note, because they probably would have said, don't let this guy sit at all. But you sat, you of course passed, but one thing that also happened, I think, even before that, was you discovered the U.S. Constitution. And I want to sort of go into how you discovered it and what you thought when you encountered it.
Yeah, this love affair with the U.S. Constitution started in 1972. I had taken a course in my last year of law school titled Comparative Studies, a Study of World Constitutions. 4 constitutions were involved. First, Soviet Union. I'm sure some of us remember there used to be Soviet Union, which is Russia now. Second was Germany. Third was Magna Carta, foundation of English legal system. And then was US Constitution. So these were loose materials. I picked them up and brought them to my dorm room, placed them on the corner of the table, and something caught my eye. The very first page, by the way, I didn't do too well in that course because I was so focused on US part of that course that I didn't study the rest so well. But the very first word that catches my attention, and I'm still in awe of that moment and looking at that word, which said Declaration of Independence. And I am familiar with the history of colonized world. You don't declare your independence. You're given independence. You struggle, you receive, when the colonist feels mercy on people, they give them independence and all that. So this concept of declaring your independence was amazingly awe-striking to me. I stood there and I read all 1,338 words standing. My feet were hurting. I remember taking my shoes off, standing barefoot, switching the weight of my body on one leg and the other one. I was still reading it because the language is a little difficult. I was trying to comprehend all of the grievances that are listed in the Declaration of Independence. And the more I read, the more I felt that this is death warrant. These people, what happened to them? What happened to this nation? We know where America is, how it exists and all of that, but this is 1774 and all. Then I saw the signatures and the names of the people that had signed the Declaration of Independence. Amazingly, clearly, they were not vague when they were signing their names. what state they came from, meaning their addresses and all. Next morning, I shared it with a friend of mine who was doing his master's program in English literature. I asked him, explain to me, because some of the words and terms I don't understand. Him and I sat in the garden of one of the department at the university, and he helped me understand more. And this, my friend was also in awe that how come our part of the world could not figure out how to declare independence up until 1940s and 50s. Americans had figured it out then, so long ago, and we suffered for another 200 years. So that was the first time that I fell in love with the Declaration of Independence, its spirit. Then I read the articles. Rule of law. That is how we are going to govern ourselves. We are going to declare independence, then articles were adopted. That's how we will live. That is our rule of law. And then comes the best part, the Bill of Rights. Now that I read, after coming here, after being dignified with all the privileges, all the dignities of the citizenship, it makes so much sense now that grievances, our rule of law, how to govern ourselves, and then comes the privileges, the dignities that this nation had. So,
And of course, we're going to find that that's a major theme for your whole life. You not only study law at the University of Punjab, but you eventually decide to come to America to study law further. And you're going to encounter the Constitution again, but what brings you to America to study law?
well, my grandfather used to always say to me that a person is not complete up until your education is complete. So complete your education, regardless of lack of resources. I knew that I have completed professional and I have been licensed to practice law in 1974. I could stay there, but something in my heart kept reminding me that more needs to be done before you settle in life. And it was very common and popular in subcontinent that we went to London, to the home of our former master, to complete our education and all. But that just wasn't appealing. That I'll be reminded of all the indignities that were inflicted on most of the world, and I just didn't want to go. And that declaration's impact on my heart, even today, it remains so powerful that I wanted to dream of coming to America. So it was a dream first. How to make it happen was no resources, need to survive, need to support myself, and the obligations that I had towards the family that supported me throughout my education. I went to work in Dubai. And then again, there comes the generosity of the American nation that has left such an imprint on my heart that I see the entire country and entire nation through that lens of coming to Dubai. And the reason I went to Dubai was this intention, and I discussed this with Ghazala, and we tell that story in detail in the book, that I wanted to complete my education, but I was of very little resource. So we went to Dubai. This is my second day in Dubai. I arrived there on Friday and didn't know where to go. Hotels were very expensive, I was told. A cabbie rented me a room, and I'm not being immodest when I share this story with you. I share these details just to make sure that everyone knows that what it has meant to come to this blessed land, what it has meant to be dignified with the rights and dignities that are enshrined in our Bill of Rights. It was a long journey, little hard to get here, but we got here. So this is second day I report to work, and my boss is from Texas, American, working. I was hired by an oil company to work and coordinate their personnel and other administrative and legal matters. I meet him, he sits me down and begins to explain my responsibilities. 5 minutes into that conversation, he looks at me a little more carefully and intensely. He said, "Khizr, where have you been sleeping?" He probably detected that I was just totally under-rested and all. So I told him that I have rented a room from a cab driver that met me at the airport. And he said, "You don't look rested." What had happened was that he rented me the room, but there was nothing in it. It was just the bare floor and 4 walls. And so the suitcase was my pillow, my towel was my bed sheet, and half of the towel I'll use it as to cover myself. And so that's how I had spent 2 nights in Dubai. And he must have noticed. He picks up the phone and he calls. Within 30 minutes, his blessed wife walks into his office where I was sitting and getting acquainted with the work. And he gets up and he said, "Khizr, let's go. This work will start tomorrow. We want you to take home. We want you to come home." I thought he was taking me his home, or I thought, which home? And he said, "Come." So we went. They had arranged from the company resources a 1-bedroom apartment for me. And that's what Lisa did within half an hour. We went to this 1-bedroom apartment in Dubai then. And I just could not imagine that I deserved all that. It was fully furnished, all the towels and all the forks and plates and spoons. And then Mrs. Crowell opens the door and there's bread and there's butter and jam and all that. I just was so humbled and so grateful that having spent 2 nights on the bare floor, this all looked like I have walked into paradise. He did not owe me anything. This was just pure generosity out of his heart. And so that was my first encounter with America. I had that hook in my heart. And then this dream that maybe someday I'll get to see the people that have declared their independence. And this encounter happens. And so it was amazing journey from Pakistan to Dubai, and then we came to Houston.
You came to Houston and eventually Cambridge to get a Master's of Laws.
Yes.
And so tell me about, as a law professor, this is really fascinating to me. I hope it's interesting to others. But what did you, tell me about your study of law. Who was particularly influential in your study of law, for example, at Harvard?
Well, everyone was influential in a sense that the classes I took, Abram Chase's International Legal Process was very influential. David Smith, Dean David Smith, Vice Dean David Smith. He's in Singapore these days, and I took his negotiating third world mineral agreements, and Dean Snyder's legal pedagogy, Professor Tribe's constitutional law. So all of these folks were very influential, but I was in awe that I am not in my league when I would sit in the classes. There were the people that were in those courses, brother of a president of a country, soon to be nominated Speaker of a National Assembly, soon to be becoming chief of the tribe in one African nation. These were all very accomplished, distinguished, daughter-in-law of Iqbal, the poet, the famous poet and philosopher, sat next to me. I felt out of my league, but I felt at home in a sense that I was there for a purpose. I was there to complete my education and move forward. One thing at the end, one thing Dean David Smith asked the whole class, he said, "What have you learned at Harvard?" And my answer to him was that I came here with curiosity. I came and I realized that how little I know, how much I have to learn more. But second thing, that whatever little I know, I will speak, and I'll speak from my heart, not from here. And since then, that is what had been. Harvard gave me confidence, that environment gave me confidence, that institution gave me confidence to stand up for fairness.
And you write in your book, as you just mentioned, about the training to be able to put legal arguments together. You know, the training to sort of sharpen your mind in terms of being critical and analyzing different kinds of issues. So tell us then what you do with that training. You know, where do you go into practice after Harvard?
Well, yes, I had the Harvard degree, but I still did not have employment.
Happens to a lot of people.
And so I went through the process, and I explained. I'm to some extent embarrassed to say that because I had left family in Houston, and I was always worried about, do they have enough to survive? Do they have enough to eat and all that? So I immediately found work reviewing mortgage documents, and I did not hesitate at all to accept that employment because that gave me some income. And there was a time in Cambridge, well, in Boston, in fact, when I had the choice either to pay my rent, to sleep with comfort, or send money to my children and Ghazala in Houston. I chose to send money to them, and I stayed in a park. Slept a couple of nights on a bench just to make sure that my family has it. And I did not worry too much about this, that, oh, I'm Harvard educated and I should have this employment or that work and all of that, not at all. But it gave me appreciation for the blessings of life and how important families are, how important loved ones are. And then life began, and we came together. We moved from Houston to Maryland, worked with various law firms, and winded up at a wonderfully prestigious law firm where I did their civil commercial litigation and electronic discovery work and all. So it all came together.
I want to talk about that prestigious law firm just for a second, because you met some interesting people there. I believe one of them is the Chief Justice of the United States. Talk about how you know John Roberts and your work with him.
Well, I served him, and I'm so humbled to have worked on a case with him. And these were his words. There was a case that he was consulting on, and we had 200-year-old maps of Alaska that were to be read and that were to be presented and all of that. And I had prepared them in a way, copied them onto CD-ROM so that we could display it. There was a Supreme Court magistrate appointed by Supreme Court's hearing, and we were to go there. But before we go there, I wanted Chief Justice to be acquainted with what this is. So I took that CD to his room, and he said, "Khizr, I don't know anything about this, come and help." So I put the CD and we open it through technology, and once he becomes familiar with it and all, he looks at me, he said, Thank you. That was my first lesson in legal technology. I am so grateful. And he remembers it even today. He remembers it.
Well, he just recently made a comment about his education in terms of social science and how it relates to gerrymandering. But I remain relatively convinced that Harvard Law School is a pretty good education. I want to take you then down a more difficult path, and that is how you ended up speaking at the Democratic National Convention. How did that come about?
Well, we are humble, modest, private people. We were not really, I have never been in politics. I have voted both ways. I have voted for Republicans and I have voted for Democrats, mostly Democrats, because I like the platform and I like what they stand for. But anyway, in December of 2015, the most bigoted statement by then candidate Donald Trump was made. I will ban all Muslims. Hispanics will be thrown out from this country. They are criminals. Judges are partial. Women don't deserve equal dignity, and so on. After that statement, two things happened that took us to the convention. We were troubled because by faith I am Muslim. Wherever we would go among Muslim families to visit for a dinner, for a birthday party, parents will bring their small children to me, knowing that I am a practicing lawyer. And they would say, is this true? Our children are worried after listening to this speech that we will be banned from this country. And their peers tell them in school that, oh, you guys will be all thrown out of here. So don't worry about this homework. And so the bullying has increased in school. This is elementary and middle school children. So I would hearten them. I would bring them close to my heart and I will tell them that, no, this will not happen. And I'll read them the 14th Amendment, Section 1 of the Constitution. I had started to carry the Constitution in my pocket since this is my copy that I carry. And this is, I received a gift from the Constitution Center where we are sitting.
And I should just point out, by the way, in the book, you can see what his copy looks like and how well marked up it is on the inside and pages.
So
you can't read it from where you're sitting, but it is a beautiful illustration of how somebody closely reads the document.
So I would read these lines, and the reason I have highlighted and I had underlined so that children can read some of them, that I'm not making it up. So some will be heartened, some will not. And parents were telling me that they don't want to go to school because at school they are told you will be, when you go back home, you will not find your parents. They would have been taken and you will never see them again. So they don't want to go to school. Every morning they have tummy ache. All of that was taking place. Then a newspaper writer from New York, James King, called me and said, you're a Muslim, you're father of Captain Humayun Khan. What do you have to say? So my first question to him was, how did you get my phone number? He said, I called Washington Post. They had done some articles on the passing of Captain Humayun Khan. So in their database was our telephone number and contact. So that's how he got. I spoke with him for about 10-15 minutes. That conversation partly is in the tribute that Hillary Clinton pays to Captain Humayun Khan. And that was end of it. A few days later, I received a call from DNC's semi-annual convention in Minneapolis to take place. They said, we want to pay tribute to Captain Humayun Khan alongside other Gold Star families. Mm-hmm. Would you mind if we used your words to pay tribute? I said, sure, no problem. Prepare it, let me see it. They sent us the link, we looked at it, and it was all fine. And I give all of that stories in great detail in the book. So after a week or so, we received another call from the communications folks of DNC that we have invited other Gold Star families to come when the tribute to their loved one is being played. And would you like to come? Something told me that, hold on, think about this. So I told them that, can we think a couple of days about this before we give you a reply? They said, sure, you have 2 days, let us know. The schedule is very crowded. Your turn is on Thursday, and let us know. So Ghazala and I sat. We have a small room at our home that we have dedicated to Captain Humayun Khan's picture and other things, and his medals and books that he read and other things. Anyway, we sat there and couldn't make up our mind. We called our children, other 2 children, son, all wonderfully busy with their lives, and they told us, do not go, this is not your cup of tea, don't. Then we called some of our more worldly friends that are more aware of the politics of the nation, told us same thing, do not go. So second day, we decided that everybody is telling us, do not go, your reputation will be maligned, your peace will be gone, you will be subject to criticism and all of that. So we decided, no, really, we don't want to go. So before we make the phone call to say we will not come, I go to check the mail. We live in Charlottesville, Virginia. Monticello is on the top of the Carter Mountain, and we live at the south end of Carter Mountain. So I walked to the mailbox, and I opened the mailbox, collected my mail. On top of the mail was a white small envelope with a card inside, but no stamp. Somebody must have come and placed it there. Out of curiosity, I opened it immediately, and on the top of the card was the name of the middle school. I realized after reading it that some of these children that I had been meeting at different places and heartening them went to that middle school. So these, and then 4 names of the students, their own handwriting. And in the middle was the sentence that sent us to DNC. And this is what the sentence said. Mr. and Mrs. Khan, would you please make sure that Maria is not thrown out of this country? We love her. She's our friend. I read it again. I have a balanced temper, but that sentence was so genuinely written, so purely written. I just read it twice, and I walked a little faster to come home to show it to Ghazala. I said, look, maybe our invitation has come. I said, this is what our children are expecting from us. Maybe our time has come. We should go. Leave all the peace and all the comfort and everything. We should go. So I immediately called DNC. We told them that we will come. And then they say, you have 2 minutes.
Yes.
Say whatever you want to say.
Well, as a lawyer, being concise should come
exactly.
easily.
So they said, you have 2 minutes. I said, okay, thank you. We will, make sure we stay within the time limit. So I began to write, immediately sat down and began to write my grievances. 1, 2, 3, 1 page, 2 page, 10 pages, 12 pages. And the very first thing I did next morning was that I asked Ghazala to sit and let me read it to you. See if it fits within 2 minutes. So she sat down with the clock, and it was 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 18 minutes, 20 minutes, and I was still reading. She had never addressed me as Mr. Khan, but that moment she said, Mr. Khan, they'll turn off your mic, the lights will be off, you have to narrow it down. So she sat down, I handed over to her, I said, whatever is unreasonable, remove from it. So she always been my editor, always making sure that I do the right thing. So we narrowed it down to 260 words.
which had quite an impact.
And it's protocol. People generally know this, that whenever you are invited to at such a dignified event, you submit your thoughts, what you're going to say, and either outline or, so we submitted all of it to DNC, and that's what it was.
So I want to take you back a little bit to the moment after your speech. And I know it's got to be enormously painful, and I'm sorry, it has been, and it was. And of course, then the Republican nominee, Donald Trump, sort of responds critically. You have a choice to make at that point. Do you then respond to him or not? What are you thinking at that point in terms of what you do?
Something interesting, for the sake of our blessed company, I want to share this, that how did this Constitution came to be. I had, since passing of Captain Humayun Khan, cadets of Army ROTC come home to pay tribute, to pay respects quite often, once or twice a year, 20, 30 of them. So I used to give them John McCain's book, Why Courage Matters. Wonderful book. And the reason I used to give that as a gift to all the cadets, 20, 25 of them, who came home, was that was the last book that Captain Humayun Khan read. I sent him that. He was in Bakuba, Iraq. I sent him that book. And when he called on Mother's Day in 2004, spoke to Ghazala, then spoke to me, I asked him, did you receive the book I sent you? And she said, yeah, this is a wonderful book. I read it. My other friends are reading it. And so for that reason, I used to give that gift to all of our cadets that came. But that became an expensive arrangement. For 20 books, $20 each, it was a little too much. I was renewing my ABA membership and I saw advertisement of pocket-sized US Constitution, 99 cents. I said, this I can afford. So I ordered 25 of them, 30 of them second time, and also I used to keep a bundle of it at home. Whenever guests came for the sake of conversation, I would offer them the copy and I would ask them to read Bill of Rights, and I would ask them to read First Amendment and the 14th Amendment. So it was a conversation sake. So I started to keep copy of it in my pocket. So we are here in Philadelphia, have come. The original line in that speech referencing to Constitution was, have you read the US Constitution? If not, when you read it, look for the word liberty and equal protection of law. So that was the original text that was submitted. So we are ready to go to attend the convention, and Ghazala is ahead, and I am, they had told us, make sure that you don't have coins or keys and things in your pocket. I check my pockets and I feel that there is something in my pocket. I pulled it out and I asked Ghazala that, Ghazala, I have this Constitution in my pocket. Should I, when I'm making reference to it, should I pull it out? And she says, no, you should not, because you must take their permission first. I said, okay. So we get in the cab, and she said, but if they say okay, then make sure that it comes out properly out of your pocket when you pull it out. Because if you pull it out like this, it wouldn't mean anything. And if you pull it out like this, it wouldn't mean anything. So make sure that it comes out from your pocket, place it. So we are sitting in the cab and we are practicing how would I pull it out, and I'm putting it.
This is what lawyers do, by the way, yes.
I'm doing this in the cab, and the cab driver is watching. He said, what is this guy doing with this? So I'm doing this and placing it back in my pocket right way and all. So we got to the convention and went to the green room, and I asked the producer, for practice purpose, they shine lots of floodlights. They make you stand at the mock podium, lots of noise, so that ordinary people who never have done this before are not confused or lose their thought. And so I asked the producer that I have this Constitution in my pocket. Can I pull it out when I'm saying, have you read the Constitution? And he comes closer to me and he looks at me very closely and he says, are you sure, Mr. Khan, you will do this? I said, yes. And he said, go ahead and do that. This will be a very powerful moment. So that's how the waving of the Constitution came. Speaking of Ghazala, I had been insisting that you must say a word or two when we go to the stage. It will be appropriate, it will be amazingly powerful. You must say something. Just say, thank you for inviting us, we are honored to be here, and my husband will speak. But she looks at me with eyes welled and she said, you know that Humayun's picture will be in the back, and you know that I cannot remain standing when I see his face. Only parents can relate to that. So I did not insist. I said, hold on to the podium and I will speak and you will stand next to me. So that's the reason that she did not speak. Coming to your question, it was amazingly sad to hear Donald Trump respond the way he responded towards Ghazala. Mm-hmm. And then she wrote an op-ed page, and she had been women's Persian literature, women's college professor. Mm-hmm. She is an accomplished person in herself, and she has done wonderful. Captain Humayun Khan was a replica of Ghazala, her nature. She is the best part of the family. So how little then candidate Trump knew the way he criticized her, that reflected lack of empathy, lack of courtesy. So we were I was offended, she was offended that this person doesn't know us, and he had commented the way he did.
This may be a good moment to call attention to the photographs we have above us.
Yeah.
Your wonderful, courageous son is in there. Yeah. Which of one of these young men is Captain Khan?
The one with the striped shirt and folded hands. That's him.
And so, obviously, we see him as a young man, and this is, of course, really at the center of a lot of what's going on after the talk of the speech of the DNC and the responses. I want to sort of take you a little past all that and think about what's been happening since then. Because you've become more visible, more public. That's a choice, of course. And so, tell us what your thinking has been to kind of become more public. What do you hope to achieve in public appearances? And, yeah.
Look, Captain Humayun Khan's legacy is care for others. He attended University of Virginia, and by the way, from the proceeds of this book, we have established a full scholarship under his name, and University of Virginia had been gracious to allow us to do that. It's called Captain Humayun Khan Memorial Scholarship, which is awarded on need-based every year henceforth. He was amazingly caring human being. He was in 5th grade. We received a phone call from the principal's office, and Ghazala got so worried that why they're calling about Humayun. She called me, I was at work, and I told her, please call me and let me know what has happened. Please go there immediately. So she does, and principal saw the worry on Ghazala's face that we have never received a call. Principal has in his office 2 boys and Humayun sitting. And Ghazala enters and he says this to Ghazala. He said, Mrs. Khan, please don't worry, there's nothing bad. Something good I wanted to share with you. And this is 5th grade Humayun. He said, you see those 2 children? One of them was bullying the other one. Humayun stood up and stood next to the one that was being bullied and told the one that was bullying that you will never do that again. He's my brother. You will never do that again. And he made sure that that little kid is protected. That's why I wanted you to hear this from me. So he was a caring person, fundamentally looking after others. There are just so many events and incidents, stories that we narrate in the book about him and about how he graced us for 27 years. Even today, we remain under the dignity and the light that his spirit has left. When somebody asked about Captain Humayun Khan from Ghazala, she said, why you say that? He's not here. He's always here with us. That's a mother's sentiment. And then she says that he has lit a candle, and now rest of the world is lighting their candle from his candle. So the goodness continues of that sacrifice, protecting others. We receive amazing pictures and photos of the families of the soldiers that were on the other side of the wall, had that car crashed into the wall, blasted inside the wall. God knows what would have happened. Everyone was saved by his courageous act of offering himself to protect those who were under his responsibility. We receive pictures from Iraq of Iraqis that were saved, U.S. soldiers that have retired since then, their families, Thanksgiving picture, Christmas pictures, telling us, Mr. and Mrs. Khan, we want you to know that look how our family has grown, how we are blessed to sit and enjoy this. The reason we are sending you these pictures, that we are your family. This wouldn't be possible if Captain Humayun Khan would have not taken those 10 steps that he took. So that was Humayun. That was, I go to Arlington Cemetery to offer my prayers. I stand at his grave. Then Ghazala and I both have this practice. We go there often. Then we come and stand at the end of section 60, facing all of the tombstones of our sons and daughters that are buried there, and we pray for all of them. They're all best of this nation. They have sacrificed, they have given everything they had in defense of this country. Political decisions, right or wrong, that's a totally different debate.
Well, they are the American family.
Yes.
I mean, and so,
Yes.
I feel compelled as a law professor to give you a test.
But I wanted to say about
Sure.
the current situation.
Absolutely.
To complete answer to your question. I was heartbroken. For some reason, this may be my weakness, but whenever I see a soldier in uniform, in picture or in person, Ghazala and I have same feeling, same sentiment. We feel that there is a little bit of Humayun in each and every soldier, in each and every person in uniform. And we can distinguish whenever service members are not even in uniform, we can tell you that this person must be part of the armed forces of United States. There is something so connected with. So when I heard that my 4 brave sons were killed in Africa, I don't wish anybody to wear this gold pin. I wear it on behalf of all those that have sacrificed their life in defense of this country so honorably. It is amazing moment in our life whenever we hear that a soldier has lost their life. I was saddened, I was shocked. I was wanting to reach out to those families, to give them a hug, to show them my support, but I couldn't. But anyway, then what happened afterwards was more saddening and shocking, that their death became a political exercise and political expediency. How could I make myself look better in offering condolence? in using this moment for my benefit, my political gain. And then came that press conference by the person that has gone through the same experience of losing a child. We honor John Kelly's service, we honor his sacrifice, his family's sacrifice, but he had advised the president, completely ill-advised him. He knows that this person is not articulate person in expressing such sentiments. This person should have been told not to get involved, not to say anything. If he insisted that I must speak to these families, protocol was not followed. We have gone through that process. The protocol is that make sure that the family is in privacy somewhere, right. That family is able to receive the call and have the courtesy and the privacy. They're home, they're comfortable, they can speak, they can ask questions, they can say, instead of making a phone call while the family is traveling in the car. What an inappropriate way of making the call. And that was all responsibility of the chief of staff, right. To make sure that this matter is conducted with dignity, with utmost respect to the grieving family. But that wasn't done. So I was shocked. I remain in awe of the incompetence of in handling these affairs.
Well, there are political and moral and emotional issues, of course, that are wrapped up in all these in this incredible story, as well as many of the developments that you've been a part of and developments in this country. I want to ask you about one of them, maybe in two parts, although our time is fleeting. One of the things that angered you, that sort of ended up, I guess, having you think about speaking at the DNC, was an anger over the initial formulation of the so-called travel ban, that one would have excluded Muslims. Just tell us briefly your sense of the law here, why you think such a ban isn't just maybe a problematic policy but offends the Constitution.
Well, I have been reading Constitution before reading the Constitution, meaning before coming to United States. So I know that what religious freedom means in the constitutional terms. And so when this travel ban was first threatened and then announced and then disguised and then announced, it's nothing but based on religious bigotry, targeting a faith, targeting a religion. I was in first, as a lawyer, I was awe-stricken at the, again, incompetency of those who were advising the words that they used in the first Muslim ban. A person that had gone through law school could tell that this would not work. This is violating the First Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the constitutional principles, and but it was announced, implemented, and then of course it is challenged. By the way, I have filed 2 amicus briefs, first in the Ninth Circuit and second in the Supreme Court. From my perspective as a Muslim, as an American, as father of Captain Khizr Khan, what it has meant, how it has threatened me, it has threatened my peace, my community, my faith, and to help the court to understand the gravity of this matter. From whatever angle you wish to look at it, it's illegal. Should we have immigration policy? Yes. Should we have immigration laws enforced? Yes. I am all for that. United States has immigration laws but does not have immigration policy. Just to indulge our audience, because of the time, I'll make it brief. Immigration policy is this, that this nation lacks. How many people are going to be retiring in next 5 years, 10 years? Who will replace them so that enough income is coming into the Social Security? How many people will be needed in what sector so that we don't have depletion of the trained people in that sector. Where should these people come from? Should they be trained within United States, or we should bring them as immigrants? That is called immigration policy. We don't have that. Today, the figures are reported. There are 7 million unemployed men and women in the United States, approximately. There are 6.2 million technical jobs, computer technology related, that are unfilled. That is lack of immigration policy. So not having immigration policy does not help. We must have, as a civilized society, as a country that is beacon of hope for the rest of the world, we should have immigration policy. It benefits us. It strengthens us. I lately have read Declaration of Independence again. 18 grievances. Grievance number 7. I want to indulge our audience here. This is how we griped to our masters, colonists that had colonized us. Among other grievances, grievance number 7 has become my most favorite, and I cite in my briefs. This is what it says. He meaning the king, he has endeavored to prevent the population of these estates, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their immigration here. This was our grievance, that immigration is being obstructed. And it doesn't mean we should have open borders, we should let anybody and everybody come in. Not at all, not at all. But some people say we are a nation of immigrants. Not at all. We are a nation of the spirit of immigrants. And the spirit of immigrants or immigration is wanting to do well, wanting to do better, wanting to move forward. With that spirit around, that is what makes us beacon of hope for the rest of the world. Our principle, our belief in democracy, which is of course under terrible stress at this moment, not from within, this hate and division from inside, exploited by outside forces. And that is where it becomes obligation of every citizen of this country to do their part. Somewhere it is to go and vote, somewhere it is to contribute, somewhere it is to talk to one another.
Well, thank you for that. And I have a lot of other questions. The audience has got some wonderful questions, and we have no time left, except for one thing. I don't know that I could thank you enough for sharing your time and experiences with us. I think in thanking you, I think we're thanking your whole family for your sacrifice, for all the thoughts and experiences you've had as an American. We have more to learn from you, more to talk to you about, and we can do that afterwards. But right now, I want to thank you and your family in helping to make the National Constitution better. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. God bless. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you enjoyed our program this evening. At this time, we do invite you to exit out the doors behind me at the top of the steps. And a reminder that if you did use one of the assisted hearing devices, that you do return that to the audiovisual cart in the alcove to my right.